Alright, this is my video reaction number 5 over the TED Talk that was posted in our weekly announcement. So basically what this dude was trying to get across was that, feedback is something that shouldn't be expected, but when it's given, it's very, very helpful. One thing I wanted to point out is he did lighten the mood, kind of like other TED Talk members by, making little jokes or poking fun here or there. He first started out by talking about the future of giving and receiving feedback. He said that, within companies, if you receive some sort of feedback, sometimes it's not always taken the right way. Next, he said that giving people feedback, people enjoy feedback, like I said, and it helps them grow, but it shouldn't always be expected, especially in the workforce. He talked about a Stormageddon where there's two sides of feedback. There's the feedback giver, the person that analyzes what you're doing, pays really close attention, and then there's the feedback receiver where you do some sort of work for this said person, and then he talks to you face to face and tells you, what you did good, what you did bad, and what you need to improve on. One of the main things was he talked about a loop. And in that loop, he used a bear as an example. So if a bear growls, there's 4 pieces that you have to pay attention to. So when he growls, the first part is solicit. You think to yourself what you just heard. If you actually heard the bear growl at you, then you move on to step 2, which is you listen. You search your surroundings. You ask if other people heard what you heard. And if you all heard the same thing correctly, you move on to number 3, which is assess. You assess the input and you question yourself if it's really worth going through the whole process. And lastly, you integrate the feedback into your behavior. So you take what you learned from the bear growling and you input it to your day-to-day life and try to base your next moves off what you just heard with that bear growling. And he viewed in the loop 2 types of people. The people who didn't follow the loop and heard the bear growl but didn't do anything about it, didn't follow step 2 and asked his surroundings or other people if they heard the same thing. They actually got eaten by the bear, so they didn't make it out alive. And the other group is the ones that followed the loop and were able to pass down their generation of kids. So they followed instructions, they did what they were supposed to, and they succeeded. Kind of like in life. If you do one thing wrong and you don't fix it, it eats you alive. But if you mess up, which we all do, it's normal. If you mess up, but you fix it and you come back a better person and a stronger person, then you're able to pass down and continue with your life to make better choices. He also claims that nature intended giving feedback is easy, while receiving feedback and how we apply it to our day-to-day lives is not so easy, because giving feedback is one of the easiest things you can do. Not everyone, most people in the world are, I'd say, judgmental. Whether it's visual or mental. Like the way someone dresses, for example. Say if you were to give them feedback about their shoes, they could take that really easily and say, oh, if this person thinks these shoes are cool, then if I buy them and wear them, then I'll be cool just like them. But the one receiving the feedback, they how they apply it is something that isn't always the easiest, because they have to, take that and examine it and apply it to other people. When talking about feedback in the workforce, most of the time when you're at work and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and your boss pulls you aside and has feedback for you about how you've been doing, on your day-to-day job, it's usually not good. Sometimes it's good, but not always. We usually interpret it as, bad news, or like we've been doing something bad or wrong or whatever. Sometimes people don't take that really well, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people go through. They don't know how to take negative feedback rather than positive feedback, but it's a learning process. You're not always going to get good feedback like you want, because not everyone's perfect. There's going to be times when you mess up at work and you have to pay the price and get chewed out or whatever it may be. Towards the end, he talked about a millennial storm again. He claims that millennials will change the way we deal with feedback at work, because they're so used and so expected to receive feedback, because they've been, complimented or whatever all the way up to their first job. So they just expect it from their boss or manager as well. Whereas the boomers, they didn't really receive feedback when they were in the workforce, when, they just started out. They weren't expecting a pat on the back or, something in that nature to just be handed to them or tell them, oh, good job with this or whatever. But with this whole video, I definitely agree where he's coming from. He makes really good points, like I've said, about feedback, expecting it, not expecting it. To me, I feel like feedback shouldn't be expected or demanded from anyone. I feel like if you expect feedback, like good, like compliments, I feel like you're more at risk to be let down when you think you're trying your hardest or you think you're doing good, when in reality you're not doing so hot and you get yelled at or chewed out for it. So that can be a real deal breaker. But other than that, most of what he talked about is very true and very helpful when you're trying to learn more about feedback and stuff in that nature. But as for that, that wraps it up. Thanks.